Hi, good morning. Good morning.
ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ
ಹೇಳಿ ಶ್ವೇತಾ, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದೆ?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಅಶ್ವಿನ್?
ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದೆ.
ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ.
ನೋ 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 ವರೀಸ್, ನೋ ವರೀಸ್. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದೆ. ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಇವಾಗ?
ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ರಮೇಶ್, ನಿಮಗೂ
ಓಕೆ
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ?
ಅಶ್ವಿನ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ರಮೇಶ್, ನಿಮಗೂ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದೆಯಲ್ಲ?
ಅವ್ರಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ. ರಮೇಶ್.
ಫೈನ್ ಫೈನ್, ಆಲ್ ಇಸ್ ಫೈನ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು
ಓಕೆ
ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲ? ಫೈನ್ ಫೈನ್, ಆಲ್
ಓಕೆ ಅಶ್ವಿನ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಹಲೋ. ಶ್ವೇತಾ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದೆಯಲ್ಲ? ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್?
ಹಲೋ.
ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಸರ್.
ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ ಸೆಷನ್
ಹೌದು, ಈಗ 10 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ.
ನೀವು ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ನಾವು ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು. ಹುಡುಗರೆಲ್ಲ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರಂತೆ.
ರಮೇಶ್ ಸರ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ?
ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ.
ಡಿಸ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆ.
ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೊ ಮಚ್.
ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ
ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ
ಹಾ
Session is going to start now. It is about to start.
Good morning, Soumyajit sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. So
Good morning,
participants
Soumyajit.
are joining.
Good morning.
Yes. Yeah, good morning.
So participants are joining, sir.
ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್
Sure,
ಸರ್.
sure. Yeah.
Good
that's
morning.
fine. Good morning.
Soumyajit sir, you are in Bangalore, India, or you are traveling outside? Like
I'm
just
in
to-
Bangalore. I'm in Bangalore.
Okay, wonderful. to have a small intro about me till the students join, let's have a small pep talk. Uh, I'm the L2 trainer or instructor for Phoenix, recently inducted. My main objective of teaching is for AWS, but also I'm concentrating on uh, AI with Python or IoT with Python. It's going on. So IoT is like completely new interactions for me. The reason is like I do have like totally 15 plus years of experience in IT industry, right? Starting my career like a hardware engineer, and now currently I'm working as like AWS subject matter expertise for different companies.
Right.
Although I'm an employee of a company, but my company has given a flexibility. Yes, you can go and do the the projects or the ventures if you have to. So I
Right.
do work for a few fintech companies. One of the fintech company which I want to pitch you in here is like called. So let me. We will discuss on that one once when we get a chance next time. But I
Sure.
think we can start the session now. It's already 10 to.
Sure.
Thanks,
Sure.
thanks. We will interact after some time.
Yes, sure. I think we can start the session, or maybe just give me 1 more minute. I can see some folks joining in.
Yes. Likewise, in our team, we do have Abhishek. He's also, everybody are like much talented, but I just want to few names here. Like everybody are like equally talented.
Right.
Ashwin is also one of the, the person who gives much more inputs or intakes. What he has, he is sharing with us.
Right.
Ashwin is like really, the knowledgeable person. Also, Shweta madam. Everybody are like.
Right. Okay, so I think we can start, and then I think as people join in, that should be fine, and we'll keep this interactive anyway. So, so what I was wondering is maybe today, what I will do is, I think in the last class, a lot of the students they expressed certain interest in terms of to learn a little bit more about SEO and how it works and how organizations typically kind of use it, etc., etc. So I thought I'll probably use some of the time to talk about examples from the industry, keeping in mind how big IT organizations they actually use SEO. I'll talk about probably a few. I'll probably talk about how the overall strategies are, or what are the different aspects of that, etc. And then we can probably make the session interactive with Q&A, and also perhaps if there are some examples or case studies or anything that in the real time the team here has faced, or things that could be valuable. I think we can discuss those as well. I think that will be a good way of interactive session. So at any point in time, let me not be the only one who's talking, but stop me or ask questions and make this session a little bit interactive, so that it's engaging for everybody, right? So I think that's my ask from all the group that who has joined here. Anyway, so does it sound okay with everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sure, great. And I think a lot of you I don't know who's behind the mic. I can see Kionix Karnataka. I can obviously see Altaf, etc. So all of you faculties and all of you trainers, etc. Please chip in when I'm talking, so that the session is also interesting, right? So that it's a much more holistic discussion with all of you. So I think that's what is what I'm looking for, right? So coming to let's talk about search engine optimization as overall as a topic, and I will actually use Accenture's example, a real-time business case study, how they took up this initiative of SEO, and over the span of 2 to 3 years, they were able to transform the entire organization's principles and how things are done digitally, how to enhance their brand in the market, and I'll probably walk you through some slides which I have, not necessarily all of them, but some slides which probably would be helpful, and you can definitely take notes, or you can definitely make notes to key for some key content that you will be seeing. right? So let me start by saying, like, why Accenture took up the SEO. What was the reason for it? What is it that they were observing, like, so that, like, they decided
No,
that,
let me join from here. Meanwhile, I will do the curriculum also for the second session. So that's the thing. Some things are all pitching also.
so that like, sorry, I think somebody was talking. So yeah, what I was saying is, like, I just wanted to kind of say, why did Accenture as an organization took up SEO? What was the benefits they were looking at? uh, uh, and then how did they come up with the entire structure of work, right? So this would be beneficial for all the students and everybody who is there in the class today to understand, one, how at a strategic level organizations think, and then how do they form teams, how do they form groups, and how do they like actually execute to kind of deliver, right? So I think that's the intention of this thing. Do I have permission to share my screen?
Sir, we have already given the permission.
Okay, fine. So then I will share my screen, and I will and I'll be projecting the slides so that it will be easy
Okay,
for all of us to kind of talk through, right? So
Okay, sir.
just one moment, I'll just share the screen. Okay. Yes, are you able to see my screen right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are able to see it.
Okay, I'll just put it on a slide share mode as well. Okay. Okay, all right. So as I said, like, I'll talk about like, the examples from Accenture's SEO strategy. So typically, why is SEO even important? I think one needs to understand that, like, what exactly is search engine optimization. So these are the different examples of website, sorry, the search engines that you see, which is available. Of course, like Google dominates the market for more than 93% of the searches, but then there are still other, like, search engines as well. So when like, an organization wants to do a global organization wants to do an SEO initiative, they not only look at Google, but then also look at, like, all the different smaller search engines present in the local geographies, right? And on the right hand side, you will see an example of, like, what that means. Like, typically, how does the ranking happens? Like, example, when you do a search, like, the results that kind of comes in, like, what kind of how does that show on the page, right? So typically, like, there was a research done by the Accenture team even before taking up the project. The research showed, and this is I'm talking about, was done in 2018, and then this is 2022. So there are 4 years that has kind of crossed, but then the process started in 2018 and 19, and then it kind of moved on, right? The internal research team understood that there were 150 billion plus queries each month, right, into Google, with more than 15% of queries never entered before. So which means every time in a search engine, there were new queries that were coming up, and that's continuous. That is true for, like, everybody, right? So there are always different ways in which users search, and there is always going to be some new percentage of queries that would be kind of coming in, right? Now, Google is the top visited search engine with 90% plus market share, as I just kind of mentioned, right? Indexing billions and billions of pages. So in Google, like, you have billions and billions of websites who are kind of indexed, and who and when you search, you start kind of getting the data, that those information, right? That's called indexing of the pages. Organic search is a top traffic source for a.com. So when I say a.com, I mean accenture.com. In short, it is called accenture.com. So Accenture team did the research and found out that organically, it was one of the top sources where users were searching and coming to accenture.com, right? Which translated to almost 24% of the total visits in 2020, right? And 13.5 million organic site entries, so which is a huge number, right? And as you know, that Accenture is a global organization, and it's present in almost all the geographies in the world, all the continents in the world, right? So from a company point of view, to get into a strategy which will help organic traffic increase, or which will help relevant users coming on, was a huge thing, because it's not about one country, it's not about one domain, it was about doing it globally, right? So it was a big project back then. Then typically, what could be the targets that we would be Accenture would be wanting to achieve out of this entire exercise, right? So typically the business of Accenture was divided into 3 different categories. One was with the clients, that is the clients who work with Accenture, the client stories, etc., the business part of it, the services and offerings, right? Then second is the recruits, which means like the candidate marketing, typically careers and job search, etc. And the third was the stakeholders, the investors and news and PR, etc. So the SEO efforts were supposed to be a 360 effort done to ensure that across all these different sections, when users search, they find the right results and come to Accenture.com and engage further, right? That was the idea. Typically, how does SEO work? And this is something which is probably interesting, because again, this is something fundamental for all of us to keep in mind, to understand how typically SEO works. And the reason why it is mentioned here in the slide is because during the research, one also needs to first understand that how does the system actually work, and only then you go and fix the problems or find a solution where you can improve better, right? So typically search, and I'm sure a few of you, or if not all, would have heard certain terms like crawling and indexing and rank and results, etc., right? So keep this in mind, where you will have a one-shot visualization of how typically SEO works step by step, right? The first step is search engines there are automated crawlers that follow website links, typically Google, there are crawlers which follows the website links, right? And connect the dots between the different types of content, right? Pieces of code from each page. Now each website page or website which is developed has a code in the backend, right? Each pieces of this code from the pages are collected and stored within massive databases, right? So typically so for every page, all that is done in the backend is saved in databases, correct? And the moment the crawling happens, they are able to pick up those code and identify. So typically this is about data and data connectivity, right? That's the domain where this falls under, right? Then comes your matching of the right queries, which is nothing but the algorithm. So they take into account hundreds of ranking factors, right? And it determines the relevances. So your machine learning or AI comes in extremely close to this context. As more and more the Google system learns about the user behavior, about the pattern, about how this is getting searched, etc., the algorithms work in a way where the ranking of the content on the particular Google page is determined. When you search, will it come on the top or come on the middle, come on the bottom, etc. That's the algorithm part of it, right? And then of course the search results are ranked by order, exactly what I just told you right now. It's stacked accordingly, right? So the Accenture team actually So the Accenture team actually, when they're doing the research, they also tried to understand that at each stage, what was happening in their organization, right? They were trying to understand whether the crawling was happening in the right way, or the indexing of the pages were happening in the right way. What kind of results were coming up when in terms of the ranking? Is it more around certain kinds of topics, or is it more random? When somebody is searching from a particular country, whether the country local content is coming up versus a different global content coming up. So all these different aspects were analyzed, and they realized that there was quite a bit of cleanup that needed to be done, right? For example, if somebody was searching from India on certain topic on, let's say, cloud, right? the results for cloud that was coming up was very different than what Accenture was globally kind of talking about. If Accenture globally was talking about like cloud and migration was an important aspect, then probably in India across all the globe, like that should be a standard uniform messages that comes up, right? But when somebody was searching from India, some other kind of content was coming up. Similarly, a lot of these geographies, when certain keywords were being searched, like different content, so there was a lot of like non-cohesive content that was coming up, so which was also kind of making the users a little confused, because when they are searching something, they're finding something different content, right? So during the research, when they understood this algorithm, that this is how typically the structure works, then they were able to go ahead and create more structure, and which we'll talk about a little later, right? But just wanted to give you the context as to like why this was done. Okay, and which forms the three bases of SEO, the three C's. We call it the three C's, right? Content, crawlability, credibility. And this is important because again, the first few slides which you saw, you will know that like how typically the structure is kind of decided, like what's going to be the content, what's going to be the crawlability, what is going to be the credibility, right? And SEO is categorized under 4 different areas: on page, technical, offsite, and local, right? Most of the time, people typically work on technical or on page SEO, usually, right? But however, when you think of SEO as a whole, you should think of it in a holistic manner. And that's what Accenture team also kind of did. So they decided, like, as a part of content, what would be the strategy, like, what kind of keyword research, content creation, etc. needs to be done. Secondly, in terms of the infrastructure, which is nothing but the crawlability, right? When the crawling happens on the page from Google's end, if your URL, that is like the website URL that you have, the site maps that is there, so that like it's easy to navigate, right? Then the coding, the HTML coding has to be much more dynamic, etc. So all these was the different aspects, like that was taken into consideration for the crawlability part of it. And by the way, each one of these that you see on the slide here, the features, there are specific teams for that, right? There's a team who would work only on keyword research and strategy. There's a team which will work on coding. There is a team which will work on URL content structure, etc. So everybody has a specialized function to play, a role to play, which helps to kind of bring together the entire thing. So that was the like the approach that Accenture took, right? And of course, when we say credibility, we typically mean like taking help of credible content, sharing on social media, people kind of commenting, people sharing it back, and all this helps to kind of build backlinks or link creation, like which and any validation on social obviously kind of means that like people, users are actually engaging with it more, right? So you're building the credibility. Maybe there's a news release, or maybe there's a PR activity. When all these things are done, and people come, click on it and actually visit your site, then it all becomes a link building activity, which helps to build the credibility for the organization, right? So this is how the like the entire process was kind of followed. So I will stop for a couple of minutes and stop sharing, and just to see if there are some immediate questions before, and then we'll probably move on to more. Any questions or whatever we discussed right now till now, like the overall approach, like why SEO should be done, how the entire structure was, etc. Any questions on that? Students, faculties, anybody? Okay, if there are no questions, then I will kind of move on, and I'll share my screen again. Now, given this structure, given this background as to what Accenture was doing, what they decided was, okay, now we know what we need to do. Now let's form a team. let's form, or other teams, rather groups of teams, right, who would be able to deliver in a much more consistent manner. And each one of the teams would have a role definition very clearly done, so that there is no overlap and every function and team knows exactly what that needs to be done, right? And I'll show you that structure, and then I will talk about, like, few of the examples of like the different aspects of SEO. I think that's going to be important, or you may find it interesting to understand, like, what they are, right? So I'll share my screen again, and I will talk about how the team structure was formed. And by the way, these are all real-time examples is what I'm sharing with you. This is what the company did, right? So Accenture decided to go with a global SEO function, right? This slide that you're seeing is a complete global level, like, SEO, and which would be adopted by each one of the countries, right? So as we talked about in the previous slides, there are 4 different aspects of SEO: technical, on-page, off-site, and local, right? Typically, like, technical SEO means, like, you build a very strong foundation as to, you do the site audits, you look at the page, how soon that page is loading, is the speed of the page correct, is the content on the page making the page speed low, if the image size is, like, correct or not. So I think all these are the various aspects of technical SEO, right? And then you have like, typically when you do a site, you do a design in a way which makes it easy for search engines like Google to crawl. How do you do that? For example, you have a site map. So anything to do, think of sitemap as a map. Like, if you are looking at a map and wanting to do a navigation, similarly, like, a site also has a map, typically the about us or sections below that, or, like, on a site, when you see the different, like, sections, like, how typically that site is kind of structured, the more easy your sitemap is, and user friendly and easy to understand, Google search engine or any others find it even easier to kind of crawl, right? So having sitemaps, etc., is very important, right? On-page SEO typically means, like, optimizing for content. At the end of the day, what is the content you would want to put on your like, page, right? I think that's very critical. So teams which work on on-page SEO typically look at what are the top keyword or the priorities from a business point of view, for which if users are searching, the results should come up, right? So content SEO means a lot of like, keyword and keyword research. It means a lot of page level optimizations, which means, like, on each one of the pages, you are using the right like, headline, you're using the right like, description, you're tagging it correctly, right? So that eventually the search engine realizes that when somebody is searching and the relevant content is coming up, then your information should be up there, right? So that's primarily the content piece of SEO. Offsite SEO is something which typically means improving the search engine indexing, right? Basically creating like, backlinks, like, removing links that are broken, right? Because obviously there's a very negative user experience if there is some links that are kind of broken, right? Then looking at like, what is my best way of linking strategy? Should I create blogs? Should I create like, when I'm kind of putting in some images, should I write the alt text in the image part of it, right? So that, like, the data and the AI are able to like, look at things in a much more integrated manner, right? So that's typically the offsite SEO part of it. And then after all these are done, local SEO is a combination of all these aspects. Now local, in this case, Accenture's case, local SEO is specifically called out because, as I mentioned, it's a global company and there are different like, geographies where this pages needs to be there. But again, like, if, for example, any organization is just in a one particular country, then probably local SEO may not be required, because then whatever you do in the first 3 will actually impact, like, for your country level anyway. But in this case, managing Accenture's public facts, right, making it a uniform communication, rationalizing what kind of content should come up at a uniform level when somebody is searching, was very important. And that's where the local teams also worked with the global teams to ensure that there was no duplication of content, right? So hence that local SEO efforts were kind of taken. And while this was the core fundamental principles in terms of the strategy as to how the teams were thinking, what would actually translate that into action is also important, right? And this is not only for SEO, it is for anything. Once you kind of do a strategy in digital, that is great to understand how you're creating the infrastructure, etc. But what initiatives will you take, or who will do to actually execute, becomes important, right? And then how do you typically measure the success? So always remember, whenever you are looking at any initiative overall, you should think of strategy, which is a structure, initiatives, which is actually the execution, and third is measurement and reporting to understand what is being done well, what needs to be done better, etc., etc. And that's how you typically optimize it. So this is the framework. So in these initiatives, you will see the different teams have certain roles to play, right? So site refresh is going to be one of the initiatives which will provide SEO recommendations to the user experience and optimization. Analytics is another which will provide measurement, framework, dashboards, reports, etc. Consulting, would be providing overall guidance in terms of they will go and talk to the different teams and make them understand what the initiatives is all about, what needs to be done, etc., etc. There are agencies who will be kind of working, so managing that agencies. Technology innovation is identifying and right kind of tools, which will SEO tools which will help to get the right kind of information and then deliver. So tools are also very important because it's not a manual work, it's the tools supposed to kind of help and automate, right? And then of course working with the site management team to ensure that SEO, these initiatives are prioritized and implemented on the site so that it's helpful. So these were the different initiatives that were taken by the team. And then of course the final results were shown through measurements, reporting, etc., which is an ongoing process. It will always continue. It continue from year on year, month on month, quarter on quarter, etc. But what I would like to leave all of you with a thought here is how the initiatives were decided and which teams were working on those initiatives, and how in an organization the large picture, the big picture is looking at strategies and initiatives and bringing all teams together, right? So that's the key takeaway, is what I would say, from the point of view of this presentation, right? So I'll again stop for a moment and just to see if any one of you has any questions in terms of the larger initiative goals, how typically it works in an organization, because I think that will be helpful for us to also understand. Because tomorrow, if you are working in any organization or in the interview, somebody is asking you questions around how would you conceptualize the overall approach, may not be SEO, maybe something else. I'm just taking an example of SEO here for the class, but it could be anything, right? I think the important thing would be to understand how you typically bring together the research, the strategy, and the consulting, and how do you form teams together, which is able to kind of help you, right? So hence I will stop and just want to kind of listen to any thoughts that you have, any understanding, or if you want to share any of your learnings, etc., or any questions. I think let's spend the next few minutes interacting, and then we'll move on to something else. And you can put questions in the chat as well. Either or is fine. Questions, thoughts? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, so tell me your thoughts, etc. So yeah, that will be good to kind of interact. Yeah.
I would just like to have a thought. See, the search engine optimization of for any organization it happens, for the kind of understanding how the customers or how the that particular company is behaving in the industry to understand. Vice versa, the industry of a domain can able to understand because of the search engine optimization. Let me give an example kind of. I do work for a company, for a fintech company. It's just a startup, just 10 or 12 people are working there. And we do have a search engine optimization being done for our website or the product being launched. So the Google collects all the data, who has visited, what exactly and what. Now, the same thing, what since it's a startup company, we also follow the similar pattern company, like how they are doing, how the search engine works for them, or what the customer searches for other company, so that we will not repeat this, we will not develop or offer the same kind of service to sustain industry. So in that case, how we will be, how the search engine optimization or how the industry learns search engine from us in the sense from the company. I do work for a X company. My X company has a search engine optimization. We search engine optimization, as you rightly said, we can know what exactly being searched, who is doing all these things. Likewise, we also peep into the industry for other companies, like what are the people searching for other companies, so that we will not repeat the same thing. So this is one part. The question is not this. The question is how the industry will learn from the company X and company Y, so that to have a better SEO conceptualization. Hope I put a question right or not.
Let me try and answer. If I'm going offline, you correct me. Yeah. So your question is around, like, with all the initiatives that probably your organization will take, and eventually how will the industry try and understand that what you are doing and they're not repeating something, or maybe they're learning from you and probably innovating even more, right? So I think this is something which is not only true for you, but for I think everybody who is kind of working, right? Because nobody wants to duplicate efforts. I think that's the first point, right? Even when I was showing the slides, you would have seen that, like, the research team actually worked on initiatives to avoid the duplication. So everything that I mentioned was with the intent of avoiding duplication, correct? Especially I took the example of the global initiatives, right? Because if any organization is global, it becomes even more difficult because every region will have their own regional content and there is no consistency, right? So how does the industry learn is and by the way, just a caveat, this doesn't happen in 24 hours. This takes a lot of time, right? Because there are a lot of similar content that is being talked about by various players in the industry, right? And I'll take an example of, let's say, again, maybe data or AI or machine learning, right? These are hot themes or hot topics right now in the industry, right? Now, your organization may want to project certain or promote certain content on data and AI. Company X, Y, Z are also going to do that, right? So where is the differentiation factor coming in is important. So two ways of looking at it. One is when you are trying to create the content, you need to first do a research and see what the industry is talking about, while the overall concept will remain the same, but you need to bring in the differentiation using certain keywords or certain ways of writing or certain images or certain ways of promoting, etc. That's the differentiating factor, right? The moment you start differentiating this more and more, Google at the end of the day is nothing. It's an algorithm, right? It's a machine learning, it's an AI, right? That's how it's a technical thing, right?
And read and post it over there.
Yes, correct, right? So then Google will then start picking up the differentiating factors from you, right? Which will help your ranking stay there. So whatever is unique in your content, or whatever, and we need to find the uniqueness, right? Sometimes it's very difficult. It's not that easy as I'm making it sound, but it could be difficult. But then the point is we need to ensure that we are not we're creating something unique in terms of our messaging, our content, the keywords we are using, etc., which will make Google understand over the time that yes, this organization is promoting something different, yet within the same domain. The domain may be AI and machine learning, but your content is about something very specific. Your content is something very different, which company X or Y is not kind of talking about, right? That's the differentiation factor. So then the industry, when they're looking for something very specific, your search result comes up. That's how they learn, oh, you know what, organization A actually is talking about this, which is something which we didn't know. And hence, like, you know, they start engaging more. And the more they start engaging, it's a cyclical process. Your content and ranking automatically keeps going up and up and up and up, right? So that's how the industry typically would learn based on the entire approach. I hope that was your question, right? So,
So what? Because we see, for example, as I told, the same product of how to develop Google Pay and Phone Pay, both does the similar function for a customer, but are they both same? No. Why the Google? Google Pay has a different ranking and Phone Pay has a different ranking for that particular, the things.
yes.
So they stand apart from a different views where they have their own, as you rightly said, the
Uniqueness. Yeah.
uniqueness of the thing which.
Yes. USP, basically. The unique selling proposition, right? The USP. And absolutely, like, I think this is a great example of a Phone Pay, Google Pay, Paytm. I think fintech is, as you know, is a revolution in the market right now, right?
So if any, see, the company which I associated with, we want to do something different, not the same what the Paytm does, the Phone Pay does, Google Pay does.
Yeah.
If again one more company X also does the same, then
Yeah.
what is the fun in the market? No,
Correct.
we have to stand apart. That's the thing which I want to do.
Exactly. So which means you are thinking something unique, which is
Yes.
going to be a differentiating factor. Now, once you have
Same as I will not be going for any production and
correct, same industry, of course, it is going to be banking, financial services, fintech is going to be all the same, right? So there is always going to be some similar themes, of course, because that's the base. But within that, maybe your company is trying to figure out a different way, or maybe some different technological innovation, which is different from maybe, I don't know what that is, but obviously the technical thing. But like, yeah. So if that. Correct. So to your point, if you are then able to think through and create that differentiating aspect and put together that messaging, which people like, if say, for example, tomorrow me or anybody else wants to kind of learn, I would learn something new because that's something new, which I may not have seen with Google Pay or a Paytm, right? Then if I am able to do that, millions of users would also do that. And the more the clicks, more the engagement, more your ranking, that becomes your own property in a way.
Thank you. That's all. If anybody has from other teams or other locations, please. I'm done.
Yeah, I see a question on chat from Kavita Computers and Services. The question is, what are the disadvantages of SEO? Right? The answer is, there is no disadvantage of SEO as long as you are doing it correctly. In fact, rather, the reason why SEO should be done is because it's very advantageous, right? So there is no disadvantages, but if you do it incorrectly, there are a lot of disadvantages. So when I say incorrect, I mean, if you are not able to follow the right processes, if there is a duplication of content, if you are having a link which is not functioning, content is not working, your page speed is not high, etc. So those all the elements which we talked about in the first few slides, if you're not doing that correctly, then it could be a disadvantage. But otherwise, there is no disadvantage as such overall, because SEO is supposed to be done for an advantage. Okay, so what other questions?
Sir, hello, sir.
Yes.
Actually, I have a doubt. If I search something in Google, there will be many links, but sometimes it will be ordered like one by one links are. But the first link may not contain much data when compared to second link. How they will order one by one? Is there any priority?
Yes. So very good question. That's something like, which everybody tries to kind of answer, right? So this is called the ranking criteria as to how and where your ranking happens, right? So ranking will happen based on few factors as a combination, not as anything singular, right? First is the authenticity of the content, like how genuine your content is, number one. Number two is as I was just talking about a few minutes back, the uniqueness of your content, because that's a differentiating factor, right? Third is how you are building your website structure in a way where Google is able to easily crawl and find out the relevant content, right? Third is how you're promoting it. So let's say a lot of times the users, they build the technical and the websites very well, but they forget to promote, right? When I say promote, I mean, say it's the same content you are using to kind of post in some sites, or using the right blogs and information, or let's say the social media, typical organic social, not the paid social, organic social media, where you're promoting this content. So you've done some work, you also want the world to know. That's the promotion, correct? And when the world starts knowing, they start clicking on it and come back. The more the users see the relevancy of the content, the user experience is good. Google definitely gives priority to the user experience and the relevancy of the content. That is the number one factor, right? How do they determine that? They determine that primarily because if people starts clicking and coming back and engaging, sharing, this shows that typically users are kind of engaging, right? So the more and more that happens, then you see your ranking kind of moves up gradually, right? Again, as I said, it's not a one day process. It's a many months and time consuming process. But eventually, if you do these things correctly and consistently, right, you will see things moving up and up and up. That's how typically the ranking typically works. All the different factors. Of course, I made it sound very easy. In reality, the technical and all those aspects requires much more work. But whatever I said is the overall fundamental principle, your authenticity of the content, your uniqueness, then doing the technical things right on the page, and promotion. These four factors will help you to have the ranks determined easily. I also see some questions coming in here. So Vaishali Computers, Bellary says that a lot of backfire happens. Is it true? Backfire in the sense, can you explain that a little bit? Do you mean to say penalization?
We are trying to put across is like if we wrongly configure or wrongly put the message, it can be a disadvantage for SEO. Then there is no point of having SEO. That's the thing which I couldn't work.
Correct. Understood. Yeah, exactly. So while answering the question, what are the disadvantages? I said that if you are not following the right process, then obviously there's going to be a disadvantage. And yes, Google is also very strict. Anytime they see a cannibalization, or anytime they see there's a workaround, somebody is trying to fix or game the system, they will literally blacklist you. And once that is done, I think you're gone. I mean, you cannot come back, right? So hence, I always recommend whenever I speak with anybody that if you are doing the SEO, do it the right way. Do it the way that Google is asking you to do. Follow the webmaster rules, etc. So that even if it is a long time consuming effort, that is fine, but you're doing it correctly. If you want to take the shortcut, or if you want to kind of create, and there are a lot of agencies or people in the market who will actually tell you to do that. They will tell you you know what, I can build you 1,000 backlinks. I can create this website for you. I know how to kind of manipulate the systems. Do not get there, because in the process of doing some things in a shorter duration, you will actually get penalized. And once you get penalized, then it's a Herculean effort to kind of come back from there, right? So recommendation is take your time, keep SEO as a long-term strategy, not a short-term gain, right? For any organization that you're working on certain concepts, and follow the best practices. I think then this backfire or this disadvantages will not come through. I also see a few other questions in terms of what are the algorithms used in SEO, and can SEO be automated? So algorithms, I would not say algorithms. I would say more as tools. There are different tools which helps you to do the research. For example, one such tool example is called as SEM Rush. if you type in semrush.com, you will find that this is a tool which helps you to do the research, right? So similarly, there are some other Google tools and webmaster tools, etc. Algorithm is something that search engines like Google, they determine. They use different, it's their property, and I probably wouldn't be able to talk about the technical part of it. But from a SEO, from a marketing SEO point of view, the tools used are these, where you can actually do those research, etc. Right? So that's it. Then the other question was, can SEO be automated? SEO can be automated completely. It's quite a process that requires human intervention. Yes, to some extent it can be automated when it comes to the promotion part of it, because the promotional strategy can be automated. You know, as a part of the calendar, what would you want to promote, when would you want to promote, etc. But the effort in terms of what keyword goes in, there needs to be a research. What content comes up, there needs to be a research. How do you ensure that the right fitment happens in the website? That requires a research and a work. So those things cannot be really automated. Then the other question comes is, sir, does SEO implement plagiarism to check the authenticity of the content? Absolutely. Absolutely. As I was talking about authenticity, plagiarism and authenticity go hand in hand. So ensure that the content that you're bringing up is not a duplicate content, or you're avoiding plagiarism, because if you do, Google will penalize you heavily, right? So yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
I'm Manita from 16 Kotek. I have one question.
Yeah.
How Google give exact website when we search something? Sir?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
How Google can exact website, related website when we search something?
So that is how the Google has developed their algorithm. Over the years, their machine learning and AI has been so strong, right? And of course, it didn't happen in one day, but over the years, with millions and billions of searches that's happening, the Google AI and machine learning has really picked this up and stored in their servers as a part of the learning process, right? And now it is so so advanced that any point in time you are searching something, your search query is able to map with the database that Google has, which they have built over the time, right? And then they instantly, in milliseconds, they're able to match that database and bring you the right information, right? And hence the recommendation is the more relevant your information is, the more relevant Google searches become. And if Google searches becomes more relevant, then to your previous questions, which I think your colleague sitting right next to you, he had asked how the ranking happens. That ranking gets enhanced, right? So it's all a process by together. But how does Google understand? It's a system intelligence. So if you learn machine learning, if you learn automation, you will see there are different ways in which these learnings can be adopted and enhanced. So that's what Google has done over the years. The technical team has been very, very strong.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
My name is Sriram Kamal from 16 Kotek. I have a doubt, sir.
Yeah.
So basically, sir, if I assume that I am a big tech company which serves the client companies in a backhand, so I am not in direct business. So all the companies knows me, so in the same corporate. So what will be the advantage of SEO for me, like a big tech company?
So yeah. So the advantage of SEO would be your relevancy. No matter whether you are a big company or a small company, or people knows you, not you, but you need to be sustaining in the market for a longer run, right? So by doing the SEO, you are offering that to the users. Anytime a user who would want to know more about yourself, or any companies would want to know more about what your organization is doing, there needs to be a presence. So imagine a situation where, let's say, you are telling, oh, everybody knows me, I don't need to do SEO. And I'm just making this up, right? It may not be the true thing, but I'm just making it up. Imagine a situation like this. So tomorrow, let's say, for example, there's a new opportunity that comes up. Somebody wants to search and somebody wants to find some information, and your company is actually very relevant for that user. But unfortunately, your content is not showing on Google, which means you lose out. Hence, you need to be maintaining yourself. You need to be ensuring that, for the user, your information, relevant information needs to be there. So 24/7, anybody who wants to search, your information should be there. Because always remember that users search when they actually have an intent, versus a social media or anything else. Search is very powerful in general, whether it is paid search or SEO, whatever it is. I will only go and search if I really want to search. I will not search just for the sake of wasting my time, right? So which means the intent of the user is very high. So if you're not able to capture that intent by not being present, then it's a loss. So hence the advantage for you, to your question, would be that if you are present at any point in time, relevant information, the users are able to find the relevant information for you. Even it not may happen every day, but whenever that is required, the user is able to find that information from you. That's important. Make a presence, being there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, sir. This is Ashwin here. This is Ashwin here from Keonix,
Yes,
sir.
yes, please.
Sir, I have one question regarding search engine optimization. Probably we have two techniques in search engine optimization. They are classified as white hat and one more it is called as black hat, right, sir?
Yeah.
Why they have called it particularly on that code name, sir?
So I don't know the reason for white hat and black hat, how the name came up, but I know typically what that means, right? So typically white. So basically white and black, they say what you are doing in a relevant and genuine manner is going to be the white hat optimization, and anything which you're trying to game the system is kind of black hat, right? That's how they kind of name in the industry. And I really don't know when this origination of the name happened, but maybe some technology person some point in time, they kind of thought that this is a better way of classification, right? Because typically we say white, black, gray, right? Here gray is removed altogether because there is nothing gray. It's either white or black. So either you're doing it right or you're not doing it wrong, or you're not doing it right? That's how the name kind of typically came in. And again, a lot of the practices typically where people want to build backlinks or they want to game the system, they kind of go ahead and post duplicate content and kind of make it viral. They are all black hat ones, and Google algorithms are really very strict to kind of penalize them. But if you're doing it the right way in terms of whatever we talked about at the beginning of the class, and also the questions, the forming the strategy, coming up with the content, etc., that's called as the white hat, right? That's the right way to kind of go. So content is king. Remember this. So relevancy and content is the most important aspect of SEO. A lot of times, the people or the agencies who are working on SEO try to make it sound very complicated. It's not complicated. You just need to remember one single thing. As long as your content is relevant and unique, you are there.
Okay, sir. Okay,
you have nothing to kind of really worry in terms of anything else, right? So I think that's the most key thing to remember, which people fail to understand. So
yes, thank you for clarification, sir. So one more last but least, I have one doubt in when you are considering white hat or black hat, whatever you told, sir. There's one more term called spam dexing, sir. As we do in daily life in our spam dexing in search engine optimization. Could you please, as I was into very confusion into search engine optimization techniques and whereas methods when crawling was happening, we used to have a lot of spam dexing, and I used to get confusing in spam dexing especially, sir. Could you please help me out in that aspect, sir?
Yes, sure. The name spam dexing actually came in from website indexing and removing spam, right? So combining together, this term was used as spam dexing. So what typically it means, you would want to eliminate the spams, right? And again, these spams are linked with certain techniques that people used to do priorly using black hat. They would be spamming because the same content will be posted multiple times, because they would the logic was if I post it multiple times, there are more people who will see it and then click, and then my SEO ranking kind of goes up. So that's actually spamming, right? So removal of the spams, ensuring that you are not spamming a user. You are only providing the relevant content once, and you are promoting in a regular way, like either through a social or through a blog, like the right way of promotion, which is not a spam, right?
Okay.
Is the approach. So hence, like removal of spams is nothing but spam fixing. In short.
Okay, sir. So in real meaning, as you meant to say, is it clocking, sir?
When you say clocking, what do you mean?
So as you know, in crawling, with the process
crawling,
that
sorry.
happens, yeah, clocking.
Okay, go. Just explain me a little bit more. Clocking.
So
What do you mean?
as we're doing in clocking process now, sir, when the crawling and other technique methods process, like in search engine, there is a technique called clocking now, sir. How that works actually in that respective processor?
I don't know this answer. Sorry,
Okay.
because I have I can find back, and I can probably in the next class something I can explain it more. But I typically don't know what the clocking is, but I would love to know a little bit more.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Because where I was stuck in that clocking process, sir, where I was initially building regarding website development, where we are ranking to top number one, there was a clocking process which was happening, sir. That based on that ranking, their search engine optimization, they were giving a classification ads. So I was stuck with the
okay. I think I understand what you're saying. So I think the
Yes, sir.
terminology is different. I think I get it. So you are using the word clocking, and which I didn't hear. But what you are actually meaning is the timing where your ranking of the website was actually improving, right? What are the 5 initiatives you are doing which will make your website kind of improve? I think that's what you're talking, and maybe that's a term you are using. I was unfamiliar, but then now I think I get it what you're saying.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you for your valuable words, sir.
Thank you. Yes, I think these are great questions, and please keep them coming. There's a one question from Kionix Karnataka, which says, "Sir, how does SEO campaign work?" I think again that's a very good question. So typically, search engine optimization is, as I was mentioning, is a long-term game. It's not something that you want to see a result overnight, right? So let's take a step back and understand in general, how does a campaign work in general? Forget SEO or anything else. And I can talk about a little bit more, and then I will tell you where probably SEO fits in, right? When you think of a campaign, you think a 360, like a circle, right? There are different elements to a campaign. A campaign can be digital, campaign can be non-digital, campaign can be print, right, etc., etc., right? Now within a digital campaign, again there are different aspects. In a circle, you can have an email campaign, you can have a Google ads campaign, you can have display banner campaigns, you can have social media campaigns, etc., etc., right? And SEO becomes a part of that circle, correct? Now, when you are doing a campaign, you should look at integrated, approach. You're not doing anything standalone. You're not doing one tactic. You will be doing all of these together at some phases, etc. Where SEO comes in is SEO would ensure that all the different aspects of the campaign which we talked about, which is letting the user know your content, letting the user interact more with your content, letting the user click and come to the website and interact, etc., is actually helping your organic search ranking, right? And then in the longer run, SEO takes over in a way where users are so familiar with your brand, users become so excited to be knowing about your brand even more. They would do organic search, and hence your SEO results will kind of start coming in and contributing, right? So in the example initially in the slides, when I talked about that, Accenture, when they were doing the research, they found that 24% of the users, of the total users coming to Accenture.com, are from organic, right? So eventually, what happened is there were different campaigns, etc., different messages, etc., that users were seeing. They knew what Accenture was talking about. They would remember, and then later they would come and search, and hence the organic traffic increased, and hence the SEO increased. SEO contribution of SEO towards the campaign increased, right? So that's how you should look at SEO and its impact on the campaign. Yeah, how to use social media marketing for SEO, right? So firstly, you must understand that when you're using social media marketing, the content that you are promoting should also be kind of present in a way on your website, right? If your website is talking about X, then your social media promotion is also about X, right? So when that correlation happens, when users start seeing the the content on social media, they learn about it, they come, they click on that content, and then which leads you back to the website. Now that's called one example of link building. How many backlinks are you bringing in to the website through your social media, right? So that's typically how the social media and SEO go hand in hand. Okay, so I think these are great questions. What I will do now is I will again show you further examples of what an on-page SEO means or what an off-page SEO means, and a lot of these questions which you asked and which we were having an interaction with, you will be able to see that that's exactly how things should be done, right? So I will share my screen, and you should be able to see that. Just give me a moment. I'll just open things up. Okay. Because sometimes when you see it visually, it helps you to understand what we were talking about. Yeah. So you're all familiar with the Google search page, because all of us here have done search in some point in time, right? Now, have you ever thought that in a search page, what are the different components that is available, right? One is on the top of the page, it's called as the paid search ads, like Google AdWords or something, as you're familiar with, right? Second is there are some content which talks about certain topics, and this is called as the knowledge graph. So typically it means business. In this example, it is about business strategy. So somebody would have searched on what does business strategy mean, right? It's a knowledge somebody is wanting to know. Or if somebody is asking about what does machine learning mean, right? Those kind of queries, right? So typically you will have a section of this kind of stuff on the page, which is known as the knowledge graph, right? Then you have images, right? When you go to Google search, when you search, you'll also find some relevant images coming up, right? Then you have different news, the news information that's there, right, on certain topics, etc., this thing. And then finally you have blog posts, right, the different blogs on the similar topic, etc., right? So in this example, if you see on the top, absolutely the keyword used by the user is business strategy, right? So which means the user typically is trying to probably understand what is business strategy, or they're wanting to understand some sort of a generic information around business strategy, right? It's a very generic keyword, it's not very specific keyword, correct? So when somebody searches something like this, now for the user, all these five different aspects comes in. You see some ads on the top, you see a knowledge graph, you see images, you see news, you see blog posts, right? So typically, if you were Accenture, or if you were an organization who wanted to maximize, if somebody searches business strategy, what should come up, you need to look at all these aspects to ensure that the right kind of relevant results come up, right? How do you typically do that? So for example, if you want to optimize the knowledge section of the page, right, typically you would be using keywords that is a priority for the business, right? In this case of Accenture, utilize priority keyword term in key areas such as SEO titles, page headlines, body copy, and the text of a link. So which means maybe Accenture might have some article which is hosted on their website, and over there the headline of that article might have a word around business strategy. The title, the page title, right, would be having a certain word around business strategy, the body, etc. So that next time when an user actually searches business strategy in the knowledge graph section, instead of saying businesscasestudies.co.uk, maybe some Accenture, results comes up. That would be the goal of Accenture to kind of follow, right? But what I'm trying to make you understand is typically how you would go ahead and optimize it so that that this section gives you the relevant result when somebody types a particular kind of keyword on the top, right? Similarly, the images. Now, images typically image is an image at the end of the day, right? So how does a search engine understand what the relevant image is going to be? So every image that you have on your web or your social or your anywhere that you're using as a part of your overall campaign promotion, etc., should have what we call as an alt text. So when you work with any of the developers or when you work with any of the marketing and the creative teams, they will create that alt text for you. So alt text typically means you are describing the image, right, by having certain words mentioned. That is alt text. So which helps the search engines to understand how things are, right? So typically that's what use keywords within the file names. When you're uploading the image, typically the file name should contain the what that image is all about. Using relevant keywords in the body copy around that image. So if there is an image and there are spaces below or side to describe that, the description, then you must be able to use that, right? And then it helps the search engines to search fast, identify that, right? News, right? Typically, news, if you want to, again, talking about the business strategy. Now, in this case, if Accenture is wanting the relevant information to come up in this section of the page, what they should do is they should use the keywords of a business around business strategy, etc., and release it in press, right? So any information. So for example, if there is an acquisition that is happening, Accenture is talking about some financial results because it's a public company. They need to talk about financial results. They have an article, they talk to the press, and then they ensure that the word business strategy, long-term vision, all these things are included. And when those press releases actually starts getting indexed by Google, then typically as a part of the optimization, the relevant news will start coming up, right? In this case, while business strategy was the keyword used, we are seeing the news of New York Times talking about a profitable business model. Now, this is not Accenture. So imagine an Accenture's news was coming here, then it would be successful for the organization, right? So that's how typically you would be using the optimization part of it for the news section. Then coming to the blogs, again, pretty simple and straightforward. A blog post will always provide content that is new and that is freshness, right? So I think few of the questions around were how do we promote content? What kind of uniqueness do we bring in, right? So typically, if you are having your social media or your blog, etc., which is relevant for the users, in this case, again, the blog was about business, business. It was around business review, business strategy, right? So if you are, if Accenture is promoting certain blogs around business and business strategy, that should come up. In this case, unfortunately, it is hbr.org and Forbes, which talks about business strategy, but it is not around Accenture. So now imagine if Accenture would have worked with a Forbes or an HBR to create a content, joint content around business strategy, and if that is what that was used here, right, would have been helpful, right? So this is how one should start thinking when you are thinking of SEO as a overall subject, and how you would want to take a look at it, right? I see some questions here, so maybe I'll stop for a couple of moments and then just try to address those questions first. Okay. The questions are, which soft skills are required to implement SEO strategies? And the follow-up question is, which skills are required to implement SEO strategies, right? So see, when you say skills, I think there are various aspects of SEO which we are kind of learning, right? SEO is about technical, SEO is about content, SEO is about how you would want to market that. So there are different aspects of SEO, right? So I think the skills that are required would be, it could be anything or it could be everything. It all depends on what's the most what is your strength, to be honest, right? But a good SEO person would have skill sets which is at least two of them, if not all the four, right? That's important. So if you may be a very good technical SEO, which is great, then you may also want to understand how a content SEO works, right? That will be an advantage. Or that you are good with content and technical SEO, you need to understand how maybe the off-page SEO works, how the indexing, etc. works, right? So at least out of the three, you should be able to have good solid knowledge of two of them, because that's where the integrated way of thinking will happen. And this question is kind of good, because a lot of times even in the interviews, and let me bring in some of the interview angles right now, because typically this is what we would want to see when we kind of interview. So in interviews, questions are around problem solving. You are probably given a problem saying, what, okay, we are facing this problem and we would want to, let's say, improve the scope through our SEO. What are the few things you would do? So if you are a person who is only specialized in technical, then you will be talking only technical. But if you are a person who is also knowing something additional, then that's a value addition, because then the interviewer who is interacting with you will understand, okay, fine, while this person's strengths lies in technical SEO, but the person also understands the content SEO, right? So that's how you typically want to kind of package. So yeah, these are the different skills you would need. And of course, soft skills are important in the sense you need to articulate, I think, your communication, right? So that's a soft skill part of it. But the hard skills would be all the other components of understanding how typically it works. Then there is another question which says, who is managing all cloud servers across the globe as far as search engine is concerned? So search engine in this case, let's say for example, it's Google. So Google has its own cloud server, right? If there are any other, for example, the other players who are there, for example, Yahoo or Yandex or whatever it is, right? They will have their own typical search cloud servers, or they may be partnering with some cloud servers like AWS or Azure, etc. So it all depends. There is no one one final solution as to who is kind of hosting where. It is all up in the market. But of course, Google hosts it on Google Cloud Server because that is their own product, right?
Hello, sir. I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
Sir, will my approach or my technique to SEO, will it change on what type of business or website I am promoting?
Yes, the content SEO will definitely change because of your nature of business, but the fundamentals of technical and off-page SEO will not change. That will still remain the same. You still need to build the website. You still need to ensure that the page is loading. You still need to have a sitemap. You need to know that all the links are working properly. So that part remains the same. It's the content SEO part then which changes. Because if your business is X and tomorrow your business is Y, then you need to talk about Y as well. So the content part of the SEO will change.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So now let's move on to the to more of SEO, right? We talked about how typically the search engine pages kind of typically look like, basically, right? What are the 5 different components over there, right? Now we'll talk a little bit about on-page SEO, and this is something which probably you may find interesting. Okay. All right. So we were talking about some best practices, right? How do you do keyword research? And maybe you can note these, these are some examples of some content, like tools, etc., where you would be this is how you would be using to do the research, right? So keyword research is extremely important, as we all know, because it all starts from the keyword research part of it, right? And search intent classification is exactly what we saw in the previous slides. Like, what are the different five different options which is present on the Google search page, right? The relevancy of the results, like in the ranking questions, like how they are, right? These are the different tools, like Google key ads, keyword planner, keywords everywhere. Then there are some more tools like your SEM rush, etc., which will give you the average monthly search volume of your competition, of what you are doing, what could be the suggested bids in terms of doing a paid ads on, etc., etc., right? So this would help you understand that if you're thinking of your content being there present, how is the market, or what are the things in the market users are searching on? Similarity, dissimilarity, uniqueness, etc., right? The current rankings, I think there are a lot of questions around ranking. So there are some tools like Bright Edge, etc., which gives you the rankings of the competition, how you are performing compared to them, right? So these are the tools part of it. Then how do you typically structure, once you are done with the keyword research, right? So you may say that, I have done 50 keywords, or I have done 30 keywords, I have done 25 keywords, right? But the most important element is, how do you look at it, with a lens of structuring, right? So the best practice is similar themes and topics should be clubbed under one, and that's what is called as the keyword cloud, right? In this example, what you see here that Accenture has done, Accenture wanted to talk about workplace transformation. That was the page. On the right hand side, you can see the screenshot of the page, right? Typically, what does this mean? It means providing clients with innovative distributed computing solutions that equip multi types of workers, etc., etc., etc. So basically, enabling different transformational equipments or devices, or your tools to the users, which will, basically people who are working in the organization, to change the transformation. So that was the page about. Now, if you want this page to be ranked, there are some keyword research that was done, right? Workplace transformation, obviously, is the first keyword, because that is the main keyword which is shown on the page. So that remains, right? What could be the similar keywords, which is not same but similar? Workforce transformation, because in workplace there is workforce, because there are people who are kind of working over there, right? So workforce transformation. Workplace computing solutions, because here transformation means computer solution as well. Computer solution is one of the solutions that is being offered, correct? So now if you see this all together as a cloud, right? So you will know workplace transformation, workforce transformation, workplace computing solutions, this all become similar themes. So users searching on any one of them, your rank page will kind of show up, right? So the idea is you do a keyword research, and then you try to see how similar themed keywords can be put in a group, and that is how you go ahead and ensure that your ranking improves, your relevancy of content improves, and also you're owning that space. You're owning the space because you are ensuring that similar information is kind of being thought through, right? That's an optimization kind of technique, right? Example. Then again, talking about the best practices for keyword research processes, and typically what Accenture actually kind of did, right? Defining the intent, as I talked about earlier as well, the search is all about high intent. You go and search only when you want to. So which means, as an organization, when I'm looking at SEO strategy, I also need to understand what could be the potential intent of an user who is trying to kind of do this search, right? So defining that search intent. So in the previous slide, I would say that workplace transformation is a definition. I would definitely want my content to be coming up for workplace transformation. That's the intent, right? How do I define it even further? By using workforce and workplace kind of variations, right? So typically defining that, informational and the journey onto the page, right? Considering both the head keywords, and these are a little technical, typically you would look at what that header is going to be, what that footer is going to be, etc., etc. Focus on unbranded keywords over branded keywords, and this is true for Accenture because Accenture brand is very strong. But if an organization's brand is not very strong, then you may also want to use branded keywords as well. So it's a decision that needs to be kind of taken given the organization's stance, right? Identify up to top 10 meta keywords per page, right? And then choose 1, 2, 3 target keywords that can be monitored. It can be really monitored closely to see the results, how it kind of works, right? Best practices for internal linking. Basically, we talked about the sitemap. We shouldn't have any links which are not functioning. When you build a particular web page or a website, there are some hierarchy. The top level is called the breadcrumb, the parent, how you typically kind of do it, right? So these are some things which can be kind of thought through. And of course, ensuring that, and this is an example of a workplace transformation page, right? And how typically the linking of the text, the images, if you see, this is the results, like an SEO title, URL, description. The URL has what it talks about. There's a page headline, there's a body content, there's a title over here, right? So all these are important aspects that one needs to keep in mind when you are doing the on-page kind of SEO, right? We talked about some SEO benefits and best practices, right? So typically URLs contain the term which actually helps. So if you are creating a URL in your site, if you are so for example, look at this. In this case, it talks about accenture.com, USEN. That's fine. That's a US page. And then talks about service workplace enablement overview, which clearly talks about this page as workplace transformation, etc., right? So your URL becomes a very important kind of aspect, right? That's an advantage, right? And typically URL should be descriptive, use hyphens to separate the two words, etc., etc., etc. Length should not be more than 128 characters, and these are little technical aspects of things, but I just wanted to kind of share with you so that you benefit from these as well, right? So I'll pause for a moment, and I would love to hear some questions around this. Questions, thoughts, anything? Okay. If there are no questions, then before moving on to the next section, what we can do is we can take a 5 minutes break. I think we have been interacting for quite some time, and then let's join back at, or maybe a 10 minutes break, and then let's join back at 11:25 right now. So let's join back at 11:35, right? Okay, so we'll see you in 10 minutes. Let's take a 10 minutes break. Yeah.
ठीक है।
Okay, I think we can start. Thank you for all joining back in. I will have one question I can see which I will answer. And then I think what we will do is we will have some role plays between few folks here, so that you are able to understand how typically maybe an interview works, right? Or how typically the solution works, from a solution service provider to the person, to the client, etc. So we'll have some kind of a role play. And in between, one of the faculties would also kind of show and share some examples from the real time work in terms of what they do in their organization and how the SEO ranking works, etc. There's some visuals which he would want to kind of share. I think that will be helpful for all of us as well, right? Yeah, so that's how typically we would do. So I see there is one question that was shared before we took a break, which talks about how much time it will take to understand our message, right? And this is a question asked by Kavita Computers and IT Services. So typically, this, how much time does it take to understand the message for an SEO is, it's a long-term process, as I mentioned earlier as well, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that you will need to go on and persist, and you need to constantly kind of keep making that effort and seeing how things turn up. I would say if you really do things well, then 6 months is minimum, and then beyond that, right? But sometimes some organizations, when they do it, they start seeing results after 6 months or after 8 months or 9 months as well, right? But 6 months is something which is minimum, and keeping in mind you are doing everything accurate, then at least the minimum time is kind of 6 months is what I would say. Any other questions before we move on to the role plays, etc.? Any other questions? Shweta, is our trainer ready? Would you know?
Yes, sir. I'll just let you know in a minute, sir.
Yeah. We'll see some real-time examples. But in the meanwhile, while he's getting ready, so would you be? I mean, I'm more than happy to kind of take any questions or anything that you have. Okay, if there are no questions, then that's fine. What we will do is, in terms of the role play, this is what we will do, right? So there's going to be two sets of role plays. One set of role play is where I will be the interviewer and I will be asking questions, certain questions to one of the trainers, and based on that, how the questions and answers goes, the two other trainers, they're going to kind of give an evaluation, right? So that the students and all of you here, eventually when you would be kind of appearing for interviews, etc., you will see that typically what kind of questions are asked or what kind of real-time situations you kind of get into, right? And it will be an experience for you. So that's one part of it. The second role play is going to be between the trainers. So let's say one of the trainers is going to be, let's say for example, the marketing head, or is going to be kind of responsible for the strategy of their organization. The other two are going to be service providers, right? So there's going to be a conversation between both these groups, which I will evaluate, and then I would be kind of sharing with the larger group here as to how that information went, right? And then all of you who are kind of present are also welcome to ask any follow-up questions. All of you are also welcome to suggest what you learned or what you observed, right? Because in the end, the intention is all of us learn what happens in real world. These are the real-time situations that you will see, right? So these are the two different role plays we will have, and we'll utilize our interaction time accordingly, right? Just wanted to kind of let you guys know. Okay, and Altaf is ready. So Altaf, if you can come online, I mean, if you can just also be on the video and share with the team some examples of what you have seen in your org, or some examples that you have which the team would be benefiting from here.
Bottom right. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yeah. In the real-time environment, I'll be showing how the search engine optimization results come to a customer. It's already been predefined, rules are set, it has been deployed, and every month, one of my customers had configured, like every month I have to get a search engine optimization report. So first, I will show you how the search engine optimization reports works. So this is a kind of email which it is telling for a company named this one. Your May performance on Google search has 640 web clicks and 2.02 thousand impressions on web, and 4 pages of first impressions is estimated. Your content achievements. What previously we were discussing, and the sir told how the ratings are happened. So all this is the metrics of those. How many clicks happen, how many impressions are there, okay, and what is my achievements by doing this for this particular page. If you go to this particular content, you'll be finding there are few clicks are happening, and what is the ratings for the performance. This is how the search engine optimization, when we have a web page of this particular thing, for an example, and how this is get optimized, how the viewers are searching my web pages. And if I click on full report, this is how the Google search console looks like, and this is the performance of what happened to my search engine. So this is how the metrics looks like. And here, this is a real-time scenario. It is not an example or a PPT. I mean to say like it's a fake data or something. It's a real-time environment for one of my customer. This is the queries. Okay. Like that, if I want to expand it, I have like I put it like 100 here. And 2002 impressions. Click on this clicks again. I have a granular report of like what exactly the 372 clicks made for, and how the search appearance happens. The Google good page experience, people have like, I mean, it happened. So the Google had rated us 156 things, and and how many devices it is being done. It has been done. In desktop, 232 people, 232 clicks happened, on mobile 137, and in tablet 3%. So this is how the search indexing a customer will get a report at the end. Now I'm going to show one other screen. This is the Google console screen, where we will be getting the data of the Google Search Console. So it is on. So this is how a company will optimize or put the data here to do the search engine optimization for search engine actually. And optimization happens in the controls. That's what I want to show the live scenario, how it looks or where we will be going to implement this. And it's telling like it is on for everyone, for all organization units inside the console. This is what because people might not be knowing how it looks like or where we have to do. I just gave a glimpse, like it is being done in a real-time scenario.
Thank you. Thank you. I think really helpful, Altaf. Thanks for kind of sharing this.
Yes.
So this is helpful for everybody to see that the tools such as the Google Search Console and others like which you were talking about actually helps you to see. And again, here if you see, the data is very different for different countries. Like India has the highest amount of clicks and impressions, followed by others. And again, I don't know the focus if it is going to be India market or if it's a global. Then typically you will see other countries also getting those results, etc. So even the example of Accenture, which I took earlier, the team would be using dashboards such as these to optimize. And for Accenture, obviously the challenge is even more larger because it's a global organization, right? So that's there. If you saw in one of the
small company or small product, they're just launching it and they're experimenting on SEO. That's why I raised a question previously, like how, since we are in the same kind of service, but how to be apart, so that we can go, so the customer can query and we can stand apart. So this is the reason which I have.
Correct. I realize. And also, like, here, when you are kind of showing the presentation, I saw some statistics in terms of the desktop traffic, mobile traffic, tablet traffic, etc. Right? And something, devices, yes. So something that I instantly, it caught my attention is like, mobile devices having lesser clicks than desktop, right? Which is a very interesting observation. because in today's world, it is mobile search actually dominates 80% and desktop is the remaining 20%, right? And when I said tablet, I also consider tablet to be a part of desktop. It is beyond mobile. So let's say desktop plus tablet becomes 20% and mobile becomes 80% of my search queries. So in this case, if I see my clicks are lesser for mobile, then maybe, right, one of the triggers which will instantly I will start thinking is is my mobile strategy correct? Is my website optimized for mobile? Am I doing a mobile first mind? Do I have a mobile first mindset? When I'm building my solutions. I think these are few questions which I may want to think when I'm looking at the data, right? So what I'm also trying to tell everyone here in the call is, when you look at data like this, instantly you should be able to relate to the reality, right? So which means if you are aware that the search is dominated by mobile, and hence you see hence you expect the data to be more for mobile, but it is not, then there is a question mark. So how do you typically look at data, and how do you analyze and bring the insights is a very important aspect of things, right? Now you may learn data and AI as a topic. You may learn more detailed technical aspects of how typically the architecture works, etc. But also think from the end user's point of view. If you are given a lot of data, right, how do you pick the right data, and what is the the pattern you establish which helps you to give an analysis? I think that's something as all students and as all part of this class, we all need to really learn, because we need to anticipate what could be the question that somebody else may ask when they are looking at data, right? So hence I should be prepared for it, right? So if I was looking at a something like this, then I would have already kept my solutions ready or my answers ready, saying that yes, we do see that there is probably some clicks which is lower for mobile, but that is also because we have started, and our probably reason would be our mobile optimization is in the process. We will need to further improve that, so I would keep that handy. So in the interview or any point in time, anticipating this kind of questions is also important when you are in a particular role, or when you actually have certain information, right? So these are real-time examples of how things work. Because even in organizations, when we get into a meeting, or let's say for example there is some presentation that is happening, some teams are presenting, or some groups that are presenting, the people sitting across the table or across the board wants to look at what is the high impact number, or what is that which is really something standing out, right? So as long as there is a pattern that you're able to establish, it is fine. But the area of improvement or area of optimization would be those numbers which clearly come across saying, hey, what, we think this area needs a focus, or we think this area is doing very well. That's how typically you would be looking at and interpreting data, right? So just wanted to share this thought with all of you folks.
Yes. So if you want to show me more, I can click on the coverage, how it is been done. There are no errors. 18 items are excluded. So this is how, when writing the code or when we are building the search engine optimization, we will be doing all this. So as of now, there are no errors as per Google standard. And I have excluded 18 items while doing it. And when you go to sitemap, this is how the sitemap is of my website. So this, when we start implementing search engine, how do we get the direct? The website is being developed by someone else and it is hosted in some of the hosting provider. But after that, how we are going to brand that, or how the entire world is going to search us is the mechanism, or we have to play smart out of our competitors so that they can have a proper search. When one week we do the proper search engine optimization, we can stand apart from our competitors. That's what I want to put across.
Sure. Great.
These are the few pages which I want to show you, how the links are there. I'll go with scroll. still we are working on. We are not considering as of now. We have something else come up to do this one. So we are hiring a few agencies to work on this, loading few more things and.
Let's look
Yes,
at the page experience signal for mobile. If you scroll up a bit. No, I mean, sorry, scroll down a bit. Sorry. Yeah. Right.
As you rightly said before, we don't want to hurry up and put the content over and over and start doing projection in the Google, so that by doing that there are chances it will spoil our reputation and it's very difficult to come back.
Yeah.
Since we are the fintech company, it's a lot of competition, so we have to go on a slow and steady thing. So initially we did this one. Now we are hiring an agency to work on this to make few more ads and few more much visible the content on this one. So
sure.
Another few more we get good reviews and we'll start apart from the content.
Okay. Sure, great. Thanks a lot, Altaf, for sharing this. In fact, it is good. I was thinking of the couple of role plays that we will have, right? And I think one of the role plays is going to be something very similar, and I was thinking if you would be the person who I can ask questions to, right? Based on this entire marketing or strategy or SEO, etc. Whatever that is, right? Getting a real-time thing. And then Shweta and Ashwin are probably going to be the evaluator, right? And share the feedback with the larger group, saying that how did the role play go, what could have been done differently, or maybe what really went well, etc. And also I would request rest everybody who is attending to make notes of this role play, and then later share the questions or ask in the chat if you have some thoughts, or if you have some follow-up questions on that, or if you have any doubts, etc. Because I think that will make the classes really be interactive, right? So Altaf, okay with this?
Yes, I'm okay with this, but on the lighter side, I'm not a good marketing or a sales person where I can pitch in or do something like that.
Don't worry about it, right? So it's not going to be around marketing or sales or anything or something like that. It's going to be something which the students will benefit, listening to the interaction in general, right? Your experiences as well, right? So
shall I opt the screen sharing? I'm done with.
Yeah. You can opt out of it.
So hello.
Yes, I can hear.
Sir, from Gulbarga, sir, Shankar from Kavita Computer, sir.
Yes.
Just one small doubt, sir. When I'm searching in Google search engine, by suppose I will type my Kavita Computers and IT Services. Later we will get some information about Kavita Computers, but they're showing the popular times of our institutes. Okay, so how they will be identified, sir? How they will show to me? By suppose Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They are showing the topics, how the students coming and going. The up and downs time basis they are showing like that. No, so okay. If you give the permission, I will show the share screen. I'm getting confusion that, sir.
Yes. Go ahead. Share the screen. Let's talk.
I have doubts, sir. That's why right now sharing.
Share the screen and then let's talk. Absolutely.
Right now you are Vijay, sir?
Yes, we are able to see.
This is my company. So I have written here, this is my company. Just like when I'm coming down, no, here popular time showing Monday like that means usually is there, Tuesday is there, Wednesday is there, Thursday is there, Friday is there, Saturday is there. Today Sunday. So only 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock some members is there here showing.
Right.
So how actually Google these things means accumulated and showing to like this? I'm not getting.
So there is something called as a local Google search, right?
Yes.
So Google indexes those local content. Remember initial starting of the class, I was talking about local SEO, which Accenture also did, right? So the local SEO, this is something which is listed because you are Keonix. Sorry, just go up again. Just go up.
Kavita Computer, sir. Same
Sorry,
Unix. We are working with.
Kavita Computer. So somewhere you would have
Yes,
done
sir.
your business listing, right? So
Sir.
Google
Yes, sir.
will pick the business listing information from those sites. Then I also see, like, on the top there is a map which shows, right? So probably it will show a direction. So basically your business listing automatically gets added to the maps unless you want to disable that function, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
based on
sir.
that, Google typically tries to kind of give the information to the user. So either you can, I mean, one can call, one can find the directions to it. These are called the Google local business initiatives, right? So as an
Walk-in
SEO,
also it is showing, no?
walk-in also it'll show, all the timings
yeah.
and etc. and stuff like that, right? So what you
Yes,
should
sir.
also do on top of this is, like, you should spend more time to ensure that all the information is correct. Your phone number is working, your all those other information is okay or not, right? So because you should make this something which is real, your address is correct, right? Later,
Yes,
for example, suppose maybe 1 year down the line, your address changes. Ensure that you update that, right?
Yes, sir.
If your landline number is not working, then ensure that you use the right number which is kind of working over there, right? I think these are really good examples that you can do to ensure that your results are kind of coming up, and eventually in the longer run, Google will identify that you're providing relevant information to the users,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Then
Yes.
but on the left hand side, I see, I think you typed in Kionix in Gulbarga as a
Yes, sir.
as a search, right? Now,
Yes, sir.
if you search, you see so many things come up. IT Park in Gulbarga,
Yes,
or
sir.
Market Road Gulbarga, Just Dial, right? So
Yes,
you
sir.
see multiple stuff that is coming up. But
Yes.
my question to you would be: suppose somebody is searching Kionix in Gulbarga, what is it that he or she should find out?
Yes,
What
sir.
would be your
Yes.
answer?
Hello,
Like,
sir.
if I'm saying, suppose as a user, so somebody is searching Kionix in Gulbarga,
Yes, sir.
what is it that you would want the users to find on the search?
Means that particular center information will be shown, sir.
Center information is on the right hand side shown. That is fine.
Yes, sir.
What
Yes,
else would you want to show, so that you are making a very robust SEO strategy? What else would you want users to know about Kionix and Gulbarga?
That is a little bit confusion, sir. That I'm not getting.
No, so I'm saying that I am an user.
Okay, sir.
I want to know something about Kionix and Gulbarga. I get the
Yes.
center information, which is fine, right?
Yes, yes.
But wouldn't I also want to learn something more before even I kind of contact you?
Yes, sir.
So how would you do that is the question which you need to answer and think, right? And that is what will form your SEO strategy. And then on the left hand side, all those contents will start coming up, right?
Yes, sir. Okay,
Remember,
okay.
I showed that slide where on a Google search page, you have content, you have blog, you have images, you have multiple such things.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So right now when I'm searching, those things are not coming up, right? Only the center information is coming up. So probably,
yes, sir,
yeah, so probably if you ask me, okay, sir, how should probably be my SEO where users are able to see even more? Maybe users would want to see some sort of articles. Maybe users would want to see some sort of achievements, what you folks have done, right?
Yes, sir.
Then I would say, what, work on the SEO so that these starts coming up on your Google search as well. So an user gets all the information. User also gets where your center is, and then the user is able to kind of probably call, and it's a user experience basically at the end of the day, right?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will stop my step.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think let's do the role play. So Shweta and Ashwin, you folks ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, we are ready, sir.
Ashwin? Ashwin is here on the call?
Ashwin? Yeah, I think he is unmuted. Ashwin? I'll just check with him, sir.
Okay, no worries, no worries. You can check in parallel, that's fine. So what Shweta, you and Ashwin need to do is you will need to evaluate, right?
Okay.
The Q&A or the interaction that myself and Altaf are going to have, right?
Okay,
and
sir.
then in the end, share that feedback of what you and Ashwin feel in terms of how that interaction went, what kind of topics, or maybe like, if I would have missed some questions, maybe you would have had some additional questions you would have asked, right? So
Okay, sir.
basically let's think through this, so that we are
Okay.
able to come at a solution, and also the students here are able to see how typically these interactions they work, right?
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. I think Ashwin is also ready, sir.
Okay, perfect, great,
Okay.
awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So Altaf, ready?
Yeah, yes, sir. We can start.
Okay, brilliant. All right. So firstly, thank you for participating in and raising your hand up. I think really wanted to thank you for that. So let me kind of start with a few questions around the marketing and SEO, etc. that you do, or probably the area that you work with the fintech, right? So since you work on fintech as the industry, and there are a lot of players in the market, in the India market right now, as we discussed earlier in the conversation as well, right? How do you see you would make a differentiation with your approach to, let's say, marketing, or maybe if you can be specific around SEO, or I leave that to you, right? But in general, we would love to understand what would your approach be, where typically you would market your product or services in a differentiated manner.
Yeah, the rightly asked question. There are being in the same industry, the same kind of services to provide. We have to stand apart from the existing big players. Being a startup, we are not funded with crores of money from any of the big person like Jeff or something to start, like Amazon Pay or something. So yes, being a startup, we have to definitely be a bit different, but the same kind of service or industry we are in. For that, we have to have some, think out of the box, what kind of extra services or the features which it could be done. As the industry, what I'm talking about is a fintech. It is financial and the technology comes in one particular thing. The name or the word fintech might be very simple, but it's very, very complicated when you are in that particular industry. Now the question what we are discussing here is how we are going to market ourselves, or how we are going to outstand, or how we are going to have a better business. We should have we should have a product or a service so that the customer should make it feel easy and more comfortable, rather than the traditional way, or I can't call it an organic way, I can call it as a traditional method of using the fintech services. So previously, we all know the banks, we have to go to the bank itself to deposit the money by writing a challan. Now it is not the way. You can transfer the money. Previously it was like check and demand draft. Now it's all like online demand draft has come, and now we can just transfer the money even for the schools. Previously I was giving a check at the time of my admission, but now for my kids I'm just doing the Google Pay to the school. So now this is the market of the current today's market. Now being the company started yesterday evening, I have to think of tomorrow mornings what I have to develop. That is what I have to do it today. So we have to come up with a certain solutions which is like much innovative things where people can do the fintech, or use of their finance sources with the use of technology. If you want to give me a live example, the company where I work, the name is NeoFed, and we have one unique product comparatively where no other players are in the market doing it. It's a simple technique or a simple idea. So petty actually we use the fintech. We are not concentrating on a big fund transfer or something. For example, I have a car. I drive from one place to the other. Definitely, I will get a toll, and I need to go and pay via Google Pay or Paytm, or I have to load it on my this one. What do you call the sticker, which is
Fastag.
Fastag, exactly. For Fastag, I have to put it on the load, and I have to go and it automatically happens. So before I start, definitely I'll be concentrating on packing my bags and gathering my family to the car. I'll not be have enough time or something, to load for the FASTag wallet. For that, what I can do is the innovative idea what my company came is with the keychain. Okay. The similar technology of like how the Wi-Fi card works or the Wi-Fi ATM card works, where you go to a shop, you can, instead of like previously you were like putting the debit cards and swiping and then the PIN number, now it can be the Wi-Fi techniques, which everybody nowadays has a card. So the same technique which is followed in a keychain. So when you can load the wallet, we can load the keychain wallet, the amount, and when you go for the drive or somewhere, you need not to literally carry the wallet also. You can have a keychain itself to do your transaction of POS.
Right.
This is one way of thing. So this is one unique way to stand apart. So this Paytm or PhonePe doesn't have it. PhonePe, you should carry a mobile always, and at times scanner doesn't work. Yes, there are pros and cons on both UPIs and as well as the whatever the keychains which we have. So just we are like trying to overcome few things on that.
Okay.
So like we should have an innovative thing being the same industry.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. So my follow-up question to you would be, while these are great ideas, and I think the keychain and the concept which you just kind of mentioned is probably a differentiating factor from many in the industries. How do you think you're going to overcome the competition which the larger players are there in the market? How would you go and make users realize that this uniqueness is something which they should adopt?
Rightly said, as there are like cons on this one, like how you forget to take mobile. I tend to keep your keychains at home, and you might be traveling in another car or something. So I cannot do the payments at the point of time. So what we are like doing on this one is the same like what like other players. We are linked in the mobile applications. We are giving them kind of a virtual card or a virtual wallet where you can use that. So we are advising customers, or we are giving a chance to customers, whether even if you have a keychain, wonderful, you can use it. Otherwise, anyways, you are carrying the mobile phone, so you can have a wallet on that and you can use it. So this is one thing. But as you asked, like how I am going to stand apart from my existing competitors is still a big challenge for us, because fintech is like growing under very competitive industry. Everybody nowadays comes or talks about fintech. So still we are like finding and coming out for something other new solutions how it could be done kind of. And what we are trying to do now is like through an artificial intelligence, we are like with bank we are getting the proper data of the customer, and we are analyzing those data and advising the customer like what is the income and where are the spends going on, and we are intimating by email or SMS telling that this expense is of this categorized, and we are giving an option if this categorization if it change a little bit, then the impact of your CIBIL score might increase. So these are the things which is like we are working on it through the AI. So still we have to come up with this kind of solutions, so that the Paytm doesn't do that. Paytm is just you load a wallet, you go spend it, happy, fine. He gets a commission, you are enjoying the service. So that's how it goes on. But now apart from that, the customer should know where he is spending, for which service is going to spend, and if the spending happens in this manner, how it is going to improve his credibility in the fund transfers or in the banking terms.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. And one last question for you, Altaf, just wanted to understand that while you talked about all these different, differentiating factor, the innovative factor, how the other players in the market are and what you're offering and what you're conceptualizing as an organization. If there is one thing which you may want to say as a part of your strategy you want to start with, and a very important aspect, keeping let's say for example your marketing angle in place, if there is one thing which you think you should really want to kind of start do, what would that be and why?
One thing which I would like to bring up, if I get a chance to be in the management board of this organization, I'll be definitely first concentrate on the branding. Okay. The moment when I say the name of my company, definitely like 90% of the people will not heard, and 10% now what they heard also they would have forgot the name. Unlike the other the brands which we do usually do in the market. So the first thing is I will be doing the brand building on that. So that is where one of the tools we are using it as search engine optimization. And apart from that, a lot of promotions we have to do it. I'm not talking about the advertisement. Advertisements, you might know, like advertisement is not promotion. Promotion is a different thing, and advertisement is different thing. So I'll be concentrating on the brand as well as the promotion of my products and services to the to reach out to the to customers or the prospect customers.
Okay. Thank you, Altaf. I think I like
there might be more also. I'm not a marketing or a sales guy.
Yeah, absolutely fine. I think absolutely. Thank you so much for the answers. Now I'll ask Shweta and Ashwin to kind of evaluate and say how this interaction went, how they felt the questions were and the answers were, what could have been done differently, either in terms of questions or in terms of the answers, right? And if you were interviewing something very similar, and if you were interviewing some candidates for something similar roles, right, would you be asking similar kind of questions, or would you be asking something different, or how would you rate Altaf's questions and good, bad, ugly, or if there is a gap, what could be done differently? Yeah, basically I leave the evaluation to you. So if you both can sum it up for us.
Yes, sure, sir. Sure. Altaf sir, actually, what I was thinking is, as a customer, what do I see is if the service is easy for me. Like, for example, if using a FASTag, it will help us a lot. Like, it is a cool thing. That is, we can just yes, it will make our work easy. So that's what I look as a customer. But as a business person, what do I see is what will be the return of investment, or how it is, especially when if I want to launch a website, or if I want to see that, then I want it to be like, if I want to compare it to the other pages, when there are
voice is muted or not?
Yeah, I think there is. I'm sorry, sir.
No problem. No worries. No.
That's a question I'll try to explain.
Yeah, please go ahead, Shweta. You're in right line. Please go ahead.
Yes. So that's what I just see, the return of investment and how the business goes on. So that's what I
yes, this is Ashwin, yes, sir. Yes, my inputs regarding these lines is, as Mr. Altaf said, business statistics is a very most important role to convince either customer or as management, as well as in both aspects of financially or anything to getting advantages is always a very fruitful solution. So we should think onto very fruitful solution, always getting into more advantageous. I believe it so, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Shweta and Ashwin?
Nothing, sir. As far as that question is absolutely, it's answered perfectly, sir, from my side.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the rest of the class, the students? Any thoughts or any centers?
Yes, this is not promoting my product or something. It's a discussion for the thing. So we'll not talk on how how the teaching works or what is the thing, but we'll be talking on how the SEO works here. So I request on behalf of the entire team, people can talk others as well. Like only we the trainers are talking. If you have any other inputs or something, please share this in this forum. Any other centers?
I request centers to respond, students to respond to these answers.
We discussed, me, Soumyajit sir, Ashwin, everybody. So you people understood what we discussed so far, or what you grasped. I want to understand that. I mean,
actually, Mr. Altaf, I was very glad to be a part of this conversation. Actually, it made my wings open, to be very precise. Thanks for Soumyajit Dey, sir. Like this sort of interaction way, we have a lot of questions and queries and answers together. So we'll get to know what it is actually exactly. The same similar way, I want respective students to be interacted to each of us so that we can have a lot of experience or practical knowledge from Soumyajit Dey, sir.
Okay, if we don't have any questions, that is fine. I think I'll take a couple of minutes to just give my feedback and share my observations in terms of how the question answers went. So I think Altaf, thank you. I think you really did really explained things very well and articulated in a very nice manner. So if I were somebody as an interviewer who would be interested to listen, I think you really explained things in a very simplified manner. I was able to understand. I also thought you are very quick to think on your feet. You are able to relate to what you do and what you would want to do, and you mentioned in one of the sentences where you need to, one needs to think fast and think agile, and one needs to be really thinking of innovation constantly. And you also talked about how unique the product is, what the differentiation was, etc., etc. So I think the thought process is correct, and in interviews or in question answers, this is typically what one wants to see. As I told in the last class as well, when all of you were there, that there is probably no right or wrong answer, but it is the approach. It is the ability to think on the feet and think futuristic. I think that came out really really well. So thank you. Yes, you are not a marketing and salesperson, and that is absolutely fine. You don't need to be worried about that at all. This question and answer session was just a mock for all of us to understand how typically questions work, or how typically answers flow through. So not evaluated on marketing and sales at all, that aspect. So that's not a challenge at all, right? But at the same time, I think marketing is one function, or sales is one function, that in general, whoever works in the organization, or whoever joins new, or whoever is wanting to understand about the business, it's good to have some understanding of the business. It's good to have how the vision of the company is going to be, because I have seen from my personal experience in my career that the moment I start understanding the business requirement, I think it also helps me to think, even when I'm alone, or even when I'm thinking or working on certain content, I'm able to think okay, fine, if this is where the business is going to be, then how do I typically ensure that the activities or the initiatives which we would do is going to be helpful, right? So I think this is a very general feedback for everybody, that we definitely need to understand where we are going to be working, or what is going to be the business requirement, etc., because that helps us to formulate the strategy around whatever we do, right? So I think that's one thing which I just wanted to share. But otherwise, I think overall it was good. Thank you so much for the time. I think hopefully everybody would find it helpful that way.
I thank Ashwin and Rajshri ma'am.
Yes, thanks Ashwin and Shweta as well for sharing your inputs here, right? Okay. So now we move on to the next role play, right? And I was thinking in this case, maybe Ashwin, let's say for example, you are the head of marketing, let's say, and
Okay.
I'm just a role play. Okay, don't think anything else, right? You are the head of marketing, and you are looking at creating and expanding your marketing activities to talk about your promotion, advertising, and let's say all those initiatives which you will do, for which you are looking to speak with some agencies, you're looking to speak with some experts, right? And you are wanting to evaluate them, right? So as the head of marketing, this is your role: how to scale, grow, how to let's say ensure that the right kind of advertising is happening, that kind of promotion is happening, that kind of strategy is happening for whatever, like, be it SEO, social media, etc. So you're looking from that angle, right?
Okay. Okay.
And Shweta and Altaf are the two people who are a team, right? Altaf and Shweta are one team, and they are able to, they are the ones who are solution providers, right? So they realize that there is a requirement for you, right? And hence they contact you, Ashwin, and then you have given them some time to please come and meet, right? And they come and meet you, and then you are kind of asking questions to them, taking their inputs as to how they can help, like scale your marketing vision, right? Or your goals, like how will that kind of help, right? So this is a role play which is from an organization's point of view, right? So you can go ahead, and I will be the evaluator. I will be, like looking at and listening to, like how the conversation goes, and then we'll kind of share the feedback, right? So is this role play fine? Is this okay? Question is fine?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So basically, I would be elaborated. Like I would be honest, like marketing head, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you are looking for scaling your marketing efforts for your organization, right?
All right. Okay.
Altaf and Shweta are
Regarding
one team.
any subject, right?
It can be anything. It can be anything. Yes, anything. No, nothing specific. Just general, right? Whatever you this thing.
Okay.
And Altaf and Shweta are one team, so they are coming and meeting you together, right? Of course, this is a Zoom, so but in general, like they're coming and kind of talking to you, and you are kind of interacting with them, and they are probably offering you some sort of, like a guide, right? And then yeah, obviously we can have this for around 10 minutes, and then we can, like discuss, like how things went, right?
Yes, as I'm marketing and I'm representing like marketing stuff. Okay. See, basically, I'm from Kionix, so let me marketize my organization first from Kionix.
Absolutely.
What is all about Kionix? What is all about our courses? What is so much of importance about our courses?
Yeah. So now what you need to do is you need to kind of get help from, like both of them, right? So you can ask them the questions in a way wherein, like they are able to come up with some sort of solutions for you. How do you market Kionix basically? Yeah. Okay. Starts now.
Okay. Yes, sir. Since I'm marketing it, so you can ask first. Start with Mr. Altaf. So what is your requirement first? Basically, I wanted to know.
No. Requirement is yours. Requirement is not Altaf's. Altaf and Shweta are the solution providers. They will provide the solution to you.
All right. Okay, Mr. Altaf. My question is all about this. See, having 10 courses which is in my hand, which is all about market oriented, which is already digitized in today's world. So how should I marketize to much more precisely or much more efficiently to reach the students?
And sorry, and by the way, Altaf and Shweta, they can answer together as well, or basically you are a team. So I think between you folks, you both can answer, jump in, or help each other as well during the conversation.
Sure.
So let me rephrase the question, and Shweta can start, and then I'll join.
Okay, sir. Actually, Ashwin, you're asking like how can you improve this training program? You have 10 courses, and how can you improve on that? How can you market and reach the students about this course, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay. What I would like to do is first I'll go with the traditional way of marketing. That is, as we are also into the rural side, I would go ahead advertising in the newspapers, advertising in the TV channels maybe, and even the brochures I might distribute in all the taluk levels. I'll go and I'll distribute it. And again, coming to the digital platform, when I want to that is market in city centers, that is like Bangalore and the districts. So I'll go for digital marketing. I'll maybe in the Facebook, I'll use the social media sites so to advertise it, and I'll go ahead so that it will reach the students, especially with the Facebook. Many of them are in Facebook, so it will reach quickly. So that's what I like to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Altaf sir, you can continue.
So rightly said, we will go to the social media, and we will give the advertisement. So the advertisements also should not be the normal, like like uniques are having 10 courses.
Altaf, your voice is not so clear, sir. Could you please?
1 minute, let me. Now
That's okay.
audible.
That's okay. Yes, yes, yes.
So, I rightly said, see, units are having 10 courses which are ready to teach, make the students learn. So, this is the only platform for the students to learn. No, there are 10 other ways where a student, as a student, you think why units? Like he can directly go to YouTube and learn. But why this units is standing apart of how to get the students in units? This is the strategy we have to work. So everybody gives the placement guarantee. You come to Bangalore, every other center will tell 100% guarantee, placement guarantee. Unix also tells them, we are here to place you. But how is the one which we have to put across to the students or the center or the respective person in a strategic way? So you do this one, this particular course, and what are the value-added services which we are going along with this particular sessions. So this is the one the kind of marketing which we have to put on across. So it's not like just blunt, go to center heads or you just put it on a digital banners or put it on at the front of the college because this or the Phoenix is organizing this different courses. Please come join your guarantee. There's just one other advertisement along with my other 9 competitors. So this is the one which you have to, put on the value-added services along with what the others are doing. Then we can go ahead. This is what I can recommend from my end.
Okay. Okay, thanks on to that. But on to on other few lines, like say we haven't some of the students were like we have a lot of questions from students saying that online class is much better or physical interaction is better. So this competition is going on between these two domains. So I was a bit confused because like now it's all about virtual world where we have to interact in virtual world as we are doing now. So how to convince the students on this respects?
See, we have to pitch into the students telling that both has got its own pros and cons, and we have to work on the hybrid model. So we will take an example of how the corporate world works now. See, all these days, many big companies, I don't know name the company names here. So many big companies are given work from home, and now now the companies are asking back to come to office, which very few are ready to come, but most of them are like comfortable working it. Even the managers are telling my team will work better if they are work from home. I can get more productivity. But as per the company policy, company will not listen to managers. So as per company policy, they want their employees to come. So now what it is happening in the industry is they are adopting a kind of hybrid model. Come either 3 days continuously and then work from home, or it is an alternate days. It's up to the thing. So the same like we have to put across to them like both have got pros and cons. We can go for the hybrid model. This way we can conceive. We can so we're not just strictly saying only to offline. We're not strictly to say like online class only online. So we can make them a mix of like the hybrid model. So then they will be get convinced to get more admissions. This is what my inputs are. So we have to refer the example of how industry works. So you should be also prepared from now itself, so that when you join a company, there will be kind of hybrid model where you will be working offline as well as online. Likewise, you start learning here itself like offline and online, then you will have the practice of this. So this is the way we have to market to the students to get more admissions.
Yeah, to add on to this, I would say that when there is an online class, so people will get used to the technology and the way the industries work. So the students will get used to that, so that once they're placed and if they want to work in this kind of hybrid model, they'll be used to that. So that's how I would convince the students to enroll into this. That is to adopt to this hybrid model.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then apart from this, see, we have a set of like say called 165 number of students have in my hands. So we have to approach them in a hybrid mode, as we said. Agreed. Okay.
Yeah.
What if in case if they don't yet to be convinced or in any result oriented way, if they don't come up with to what we do at last most toughest scenarios ways to make them to understand.
So I would I would like to give them some examples like how the industries are working. Many of my friends or their friends might be. So they are working from home. So if they are working in Bangalore, they can go to their hometowns and even still from there they can work. So that is an added advantage for them. So and yes, coming to the technology, internet is required and they can get used to this technology. That's how I would like to convince them. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So well, regarding as I said, thanks for that. And if I haven't like one of my recent queries from my students is all about like whatever the technologies which you are giving with examples which you are giving. Okay,
Yes.
on the real time simulation, if they accept in that perspective type, what we have to do.
Sorry, I did not understand you.
See, they wanted having physical interactions, right? If not, so we are giving in hybrid mode. So if you are given in hybrid, that is meant by virtual mode, we have given a lot of solutions through a virtual. We have taught a lessons through a virtual. Even though if they are not satisfied, they would expect on a real time experience. So then, what you suggested us to do for their betterment?
Okay.
Answer this.
You understood my question?
Yeah, no, it's
Yes.
clear. You're asking, the student is telling, no, only the offline is required, online is not suiting for me. Then we have to make him understand the coming industry or how the industry grows. It cannot be offline all the time. So you cannot, go only work in office. Even if you have a, when you come to your office hours, and is there need of you, you have to add the, habit of working from home or online at times. So we have to convince the students. So we cannot be so stringent like only offline will go. So this is what the answer I will be getting. So they have to adhere, the upcoming the work culture. So we can't, the same kind of like government employee jobs like where I will be coming only to 9:30 or 10 o'clock to office and 5 o'clock I leave. After that I will not work home. IT industry doesn't work like that. Be it a product based or a service based company, it doesn't work like that. So we have to make them understand. So you have to survive or grow. You should adapt the industry standards. But yes, according to our convenience.
Okay. So I think thanks,
and
Ashwin. I think sorry, you're saying something?
yes, sir.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Shweta, go ahead.
Okay. Ashwin, I would also try to give them the example of this COVID. In this pandemic situation, I think all the schools were stopped, all the colleges were stopped, and there was a great impact on students. Like their education was stopped, and many of the students, they were not at all interested to study further. So from this, they were still, that is using this hybrid model, they were still able to complete their academics. That is, they were able to take some exams. Many of the colleges conducted online exams itself. So that is how they were able to complete their semesters. So that is how I would like to convince the students regarding this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
all.
Altaf and
Yeah,
Shweta.
yeah, thank you,
Thank
Ashwin and Altaf and Shweta. Thank you. I think
Thank you, sir.
this was an interesting conversation. So I'll share my observation and let me know if you agree, disagree, and if there is something else which we can do. And of course, this is open for the whole class as well. Share your thoughts as well and how you felt. So Ashwin, my question to you was, you are a marketing head of your organization, and in this case it is Kionix, right? How
Yes,
would you you require help from Altaf and Shweta to help you with your marketing objectives, and how you will ensure that you are reaching out to the users with the right messaging, right? So
yes, sir.
most of the conversations that all the three of you had were around business, right? And which is great, because I can totally understand, because that's what the requirement is, and in terms of understanding. But I did not really hear, other than the very first instance where Shweta mentioned we would probably do a social media, or we'll do a traditional advertising, right, to reach out. I think the questions were more around how to solve the business problems, versus also talking about how through marketing you would be solving the problem. I think maybe you could have asked those questions specifically, Ashwin, right?
Okay.
So this is an example of how conversation goes in a different way when the question asked is not broken down into like few parts, right? Having said that, I think the business conversations that happened, right, those were good. Those were good because clearly, like I think there were some solutions that Shweta and Altaf were able to provide. You also seemed to agree in terms of like what they were kind of saying. I think there was a good sync in the in between the three of you, right? So for the students, I think there are two takeaways here, right? One is when there is a group interaction like the three of them had right now, it's good to have a meaningful conversation in a group. So if you go to a group discussion or a GD before an interview, I think you will get into this kind of like situations where you will need to kind of speak with each other and also discuss on topics and offer certain solutions. And this is a meaningful discussion. And if you see, all the conversations happened where everybody was trying to kind of help each other or basically arrive at a conclusion. So I think this is a very good approach that like the group kind of displayed, right? The other takeaway is like when questions are asked, like questions or problem is given, right, which I told initially, like the question was around a marketing head and how it should be broken down, because otherwise if you don't get the question correct, then the conversation goes in a different way, right? So even during the interview, like if an interviewer is asking you certain questions, I think you should break it down, think through, if not, ask one more time, let the interviewer explain it to you, like in a much more way, so that like you get it correctly, and then you are able to articulate. Otherwise, like a lot of times we observe that the track goes off completely, right? And then the interviewer has to bring back to the track, has to repeat the question one more time, right? And then probably the conversation happens. So I think these are the two key takeaways, is what I would say from an experience point of view for the students, to kind of remember that like how together in a group you agree and try to kind of help and come to a consensus, and at the same time that the questions that are asked, how do you break them down, and then like you have an approach to the answers, right? So I think these were the two things I wanted to say. Anything from your end, or the three of you, or even the rest of the students, like happy to kind of hear if you have any thoughts, any observations, etc. Anything or any other questions regarding today's class
No, sir.
topic, or anything that requires. I hope this was more of a meaningful conversation, like when we started with kind of SEO in general, just to give you folks an overall understanding, and then we had a few role plays, then we had few question answers on the chat, etc., which we answered. So I'm hoping like you are finding this interaction meaningful, is what I wanted to know.
Hello, sir. My name is Sriram Kama from Christian Product Kundapura. So I have a doubt, sir.
Yes, please ask.
Sir, while you are taking an interview of some person for any job maybe, so like marketing or something.
Yeah.
So what will be the key factors or key points that you will expect from the person you are interviewing on that topic?
Okay, sure. Now, I think it's a great question. Thank you for asking. So when I am interviewing, whatever, be it marketing or be it anything else, it could be anything, right? From a candidate, one, I would be expecting the candidate to know about the role they're applying for. What is it that I'm applying for? The candidate needs to know about that. Candidate needs to know about the organization and the role, for sure, right? The candidate needs to think out of the box, in the sense, if a problem statement is given, the candidate needs to arrive at a solution, not necessarily give the perfect solution, right? So a lot of times what we as human beings, we try to do is we try to arrive at perfection. We try to think, if I don't tell this answer, maybe this is wrong and maybe I will not get through. No, nothing is a perfect answer that way. Yes, I mean, if you come close to perfectness in an interview, that is great. But otherwise, the most important aspect to remember is how do I approach the solution of the problem? Because the interview is 30 minutes or 45 minutes. You can never be perfect there. But your thought process will help the person to realize that, yes, if I have this person in my team and he or she is able to think, I think we are good. There is a coaching, there is a training, there is an onboarding, and then people they sync up to the organization goals, etc. So work will happen. That's not a challenge, right? So this is the second thing. The third thing, what I would definitely want to kind of keep in mind and look for is honesty and integrity. And more than anything, integrity is important. So, for example, if I could give, if I ask certain questions and sorry, if I ask certain questions and the candidate tries to get a shortcut, or candidate tries to explain that, oh, this is how it can work, but which may not be the right way, then for me those are integrated issues, right? Integrity issues, right? So I would want, definitely to see the candidate is has the strong integrity. For me, that value is very important, because if I want to have somebody hiring in the team, then I would want that person to have that values, right? And fourth, of course, is the last is the larger understanding of the bigger picture, right? In general, what kind of awareness the candidate has in general, how much he or she is able to relate to what is happening in the market, or is able to have that conversation, correct? So whatever the questions are, it could be a direct answer, or it could be additional answers as well, saying, what, I have read this, or I have seen this, and this is how typically my understanding of the market is. Typically, this is my understanding of the economy is, right? So that's a larger picture of things, right? So I think these are the 4 things I would typically want to kind of look for during my conversation in an interview. And more than often, I think this is something which most people follow as well.
Sir, correct me if I'm wrong. So you require, expect a working quality solution, then a quick solution. Am I right, sir?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
While your quick solution can be an additional answer, there is no stopping. If you actually have a quick solution and coming very fast, that is great. But what I would look forward to is I would want the thought process, how are you arriving at the solution? I think that is important, more than a right or wrong solution. Yeah. All right. Any more questions? Anything else? Or we can probably close our session today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, you had a question, Altaf?
No, I was just
Oh, okay. Sorry, I saw you taking the mic, so I was thinking. Okay, fine. No worries. No. So thank you, everybody. I know it's a Sunday and it's afternoon. I think you should enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for attending the classes. I think it was really meaningful and helpful for me as well to kind of listen to all your questions and perspectives, and hearing and understanding. And this is how probably in the future classes I will be able to also probably talk more and understand. I think what is important is when we interact, the more we do in more such sessions, we also tend to understand each other even more, right? I think that brings out the best from both the sides. So looking forward to more classes with you, but thank you for attending this session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In the next sessions, whenever we have the role play, we will be, our students will be interacting.
Yeah.
Not
Yes,
like
all
this.
the students, you should be ready to interact.
Sorry?
That's all. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.